Virginius Thornton was a rather unique individual because he both made history and he taught history here at MassBay Community College for 35 years.
He was so well respected by his students and colleagues, and as I said, a perfect gentleman. I met Virginius Thornton 40 years ago at Massachusetts Bay Community College. I began to ask him questions like where he was from, but he would then tell me that he was very involved with advocacy for our rights, our freedom.
I arrived here at MassBay in 2016, which is the year after Virginius died. But I heard about him right away from people who were anxious to tell me his story, the story of his life, the story of his role at MassBay. But people spoke of him with such reverence and such respect because he had taken risks. He sacrificed a lot in his life.
Me being a faculty colleague, we were all interested because some of the information he was given to us, a lot of us didn't even know ourselves. So we had to go back and do some research and then confer with him about Black history. What Professor Thornton, Virginius, was sharing with us was true history. And today even, I tell students, you need to know your true history.
He was one of 7 children, and early on, he had been, I guess, an activist child, you could say. For example, in the days of segregation, we had a bookmobile, and colored children could borrow books from the bookmobile, and they could not go to the library. Like my brother, me and others would go to the public library and say, let's see what you got. And they'd say, just don't sit down in here because, colored children can't do that. And so it would be a push to even see what they had or to try to ease into a chair and sit and start to read. But he certainly was very much involved in trying to push for those things which all of us thought were important and necessary for our development. If the kids are really outspoken and they push, you will get a lot of push back. And he was one of those who pushed from the beginning. He was a fighter. My brother was a fighter, yes.
One of the things when I first met Professor Virginius Thornton is that he made me reflect, because he's a little bit older. He's a little bit older than me, but we had some of the same experience. Because from being from North Carolina, I was actually in a segregated community school system as well. So not until I was in the 10th grade, I even attended a classroom with a white person. So from that point, I know that was like 1967. So when he was doing his things in the 60s, it was actually for my benefit and others' benefit.
I'm going to be personal and tell you that in 1952, when I graduated from 7th grade into 8th grade, my hometown, West Point, indeed, closed the high schools for colored children and said we had to go to the county school. We were able to organize ourselves so that we not only went over on that first day of school to ask to be admitted to the white school, but we also, through the years, we fought with the school board and with the town. And my brother was one of our leaders in that. And in the years in the months and days when we didn't have a certified teacher, he and others who were heading off to college began to teach us and work with us. Though my brother was mild in manner and speech, he was determined to struggle. And his struggle had begun really early on in life, because not only did he have to fill in as kind of an assistant head of household or head of household, but he also had to put it all together, go off to the service, start college and then work with these other young folks who by the 60s, 1960s, had decided that they indeed would put Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee together. One of the things that for us was most impressive is that when you look at the pictures from way back, the early 60s, that kind of thing, what you will see is Junie very close to where Dr. King was. He was among the young folks who said, we are determined to get this done.
There were days before Montgomery. There were days before Brown versus Board of Education. I grew up at the beginning of World War II, and we were committed to a double victory. That was because that is what one of the leaders of the later civil rights movement had insisted on. Victory against the Nazis abroad, but victory against the racists at home. And I grew up believing that we had to stand up. We had to make sacrifices.
We were delighted about 3 years ago to name our library conference room after Virginius Thornton, to honor him that way. And that's a big part of his legacy at MassBay.
This is something that's going to last. And those pictures on the wall in the conference room, especially the ones with him, with Martin Luther King Jr. and other young students. So I think our students, when they come in and see those pictures, they can relate to that. And hopefully it let them know that they can do something as well.
Another aspect of his legacy is the annual lecture series, and that gives us an opportunity to remind ourselves every year the importance of what Virginius stood for. Of course, the real legacy are the thousands of students that Virginius taught and the impact he had on their thinking and their knowledge, and bringing them into an awareness of the importance of the continual fight for racial equality in the United States.